Hello and welcome to,
Hey, we like your pod.
and we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined as always by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. And today, our very, very special guest, all the way from the Green Emerald Island of Ireland, Daire Carragher. How did I do pronouncing your name, Daire? Welcome.
That was 10 out of 10, no notes, Don. I
Nice.
mean, the intro to this show is always like top tier. That music just gets me going every time I hear it. But yeah, no, obviously delighted to be here. I'm delighted that we could make this work with time zones and whatnot. I usually can stay up quite late. The Packers have conditioned me to do that over the years. But yeah, no, it's great to find a time that works.
We're just so excited to
good.
have you here, Dar. I mean, we've been reading your stuff for years now, and it's always so well written, so informative, so smart, and so fun to read. So to actually have this chance to have a conversation with you today, I've been looking forward to it for a week since we first started talking about it. So, dude, just really happy to have you here. This is great.
That's such a nice thing to say. Like, I mean, you guys have always been like the most supportive people to me, and I know I like that sounds like sappy or something, but listen, it's genuinely so true. Like, in terms of people who are always like supportive and never have a bad word to say, you guys are 1A.
Well, that's awesome to hear. We love that. We love that so much. So, how was your week? What's going on with you there in? I wrote down the county you live in. Let's see, where is it? Armagh.
County Armagh, yes.
Yes.
The proud county of Armagh, the best county of all. Yes, it's been a hectic week. I actually didn't tell you this beforehand, but I probably should have. I am currently in the middle of packing. I am flying to New Orleans tomorrow to go to the Super Bowl, so
wow.
I'm going to be
Holy
there
cow.
all week. Yeah, so I know I'm pretty sure Don might be boycotting the Super Bowl, so I'm kind of doing the opposite. But but it should be a really fun week. It's been a very, very hectic couple of days. I had some stuff going on today. I was at horse like the Irish version of the Kentucky Derby is what I was at today. So I've had it was an unnecessary journey, but my friends wanted to go, so I was like, okay, I'll go. So yeah, I've been like frantically last minute packing. I'm flying to Philadelphia in about 12 hours. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I've got yeah, and I don't know, you guys probably don't watch wrestling, but the Royal Rumble is on after this, and I love tuning into that every single year. So I'll probably not sleep a wink all night.
Oh my God.
So are you going to go just as a fan of football, or are you going to do any like writing, reporting, anything like that, or what do you
I
do?
am lucky enough to be with Pro Football Ireland, who are going to be covering the event. So as it stands, I don't actually know if I'm going to the game. It was the same last year. I ended up being fortunate enough I got to the game last year in Vegas. That was my first experience of this Super Bowl. I didn't think I was going to be back again this year, but as the year went on, they kind of were like, hey, we're going to have some media passes. Do you want to come? And I was like, I think I will end up eventually. So I of course, ended up, couldn't help myself. I booked the flight, and we've got a bit of an underwhelming Super Bowl, but I think by the time I'm there and by the time I've been talking it up for a week and getting to meet with players and coaches and everything, I'll be super, super pumped when it comes to Sunday morning and we've got a game in our hands.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole atmosphere around it will be awesome no matter where it was. But to be in New Orleans, one of like the most fun cities in the entire country, like what a good time you're gonna have. What am I trying to say? It's gonna be a blast, man. It's gonna be a blast.
Yeah, like I mean, that's kind of what I was. There's a lot of cities, like my American city knowledge isn't obviously as good as your guys would be, but I knew that from just past experience that New Orleans seems like a very fun place to go. So similar to Vegas last year, I was like, you know what, I might as well go and have some fun for a week while I'm out there. Treat it as a bit of a holiday or a vacation, as you guys call it. So, like,
Sure.
I mean, that's as much as I'm working. Like, don't tell the NFL that, but yeah, that's that's kind of the way I view these trips. So yeah, it should be a week of a lot of fun times.
It will. There's all kinds of activities, local activities that the networks have going on and the teams, and you're going to meet all kinds of great people. And like Matt said, it's a fun city too. Great food,
Yeah.
depending on what your tastes are and all that. And great drink for sure. So it'll be an experience no matter what. Even if you don't, like you say, even if you didn't make it to the game, but you probably will. Yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully so. But I mean, the weekend in general is so fun that you don't really worry about getting to the game at the end of things. Well, at least I don't. So, at the end of it, you're like, you know what, this was worth it, even if I don't get to it ultimately. I can
Right.
probably go watch it somewhere and have a ton of fun that way. So
Mhm.
I don't worry too much.
Yeah, just to be there should be amazing, no doubt. A second ago, I did this. I was trying to do fingers crossed, but it came off really weird looking. So
Oh.
nothing on Twitter. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. There we go. Good luck.
And Maddie, how was your week? What's up with you?
Having a great
What's
week.
going on?
Yeah, I mean, work is really slow. We're like one of those couple of rare lulls at work. So I took a day off on Friday. The kids had the day off too from school.
Wow.
Stayed home, played with them. It was amazing. We're playing through a fun Nintendo Switch game with the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And we were just playing a bit before I came up here, got past a major part. I was like, yes, got that taken care of. Let's go do a podcast. Having a great day. So yeah, I'm good. And for as much of a letdown as it is after the Packers season is over for a number of reasons, it's still, fun to be able to then think, well, I can also put my attention to things that aren't football, like my family. So that's cool.
That's very cool.
So I'm great. Dawn, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We had a we got a third of an inch of rain, which is amazing. We've like all year only rain. I don't mean just from January, but like since last winter. So it was like, my flowers are happy. I did a little gardening on my little garden, and yeah, it's good. We're having winter here, though, for sure. It's definitely cold. I went over to the garden center yesterday after an appointment, and I couldn't stand it. I was so cold. And I asked my friend, like, how cold is it? You're going to die, Matt. And I had on like a shirt and a sweatshirt and pants. And she said, I thought she said 68, but that can't be right. She must have said 58. I was like,
even 58. Even 58.
It must have been. Yeah, but I was in the shade. It wasn't sunny where I was standing. So I know, dying. I live where it's very dry and very warm normally. Well, not very
We live
warm.
in complete opposite climates. Oh my God, it rains here all day, every day. I mean, it's just, it gets so tiring. I was dying this time last year to get out to Vegas to a dry climate, and I was there, and the first day I came, which the something 5th of February or something, it poured rain all day when I got there. And I was Googling on my phone, how many days per year does it rain in Las Vegas? And it said like 9. I was like, you cannot be serious right now.
Yeah, that's the desert there. So yeah, but when it does rain there, the desert storms can be pretty crazy for sure. Yeah, it rains a little less here.
There's a concept in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series by Douglas Adams where there's a guy who's like a rain god and never knows it. He just thinks he's living like a regular life, but it's always raining where he is, and it's like known to other entities within the universe that like this is actually the god of rain. And so, Dara, maybe that's you. Maybe you brought
that is me. Maybe I harness that power
without even realizing it. Just follows you around. You can't avoid it. That's what it is.
Well, okay, so Dara, I have questions. I always have questions, and especially when we meet Packers fans or content creators or both from another country, right? So we always like to start out with your Twitter. So it's at Dara Carragher, and we'll spell it out.
Carragher,
We'll spell that out for all. So make sure you're following him, Twitter and Blue Sky. Green Bay Packers for at 24/7 Sports and at Packer Report 66. Drinker of Guinness, of course. And as I mentioned, the county you are from, Armagh, Ireland. And I actually did look that up. So Armagh from Wikipedia, like the source of many superficial research projects that I do. Armagh is a city and the country town of County Armagh in Northern Ireland, as well as a civil parish. It is the ecclesiastical capital of
The
Ireland.
ecclesiastical capital of Ireland, baby. That's what we're known
Wow.
as.
It is the seat of the archbishops of Armagh, the primates of all Ireland for both the Roman Catholic Church and the Church of Ireland. So,
Oh, wow.
and I looked up some photographs from your beautiful county, and the beautiful buildings too. So, I just thought that was kind of interesting. So, how does that impact your daily life? Does it at all? How do you
I
feel
mean,
living in the
I,
ecclesiastical capital of
I love it, and yeah, you're right. All the bishop stuff. It's a very Catholic county. It always has been. I mean, Ireland's a very Catholic country as is, but yeah, Armagh's very religious and always has been. But we have a sport called Gaelic football, and that is what our Armagh prides itself on more than anything. There are 32 counties in Ireland, so the setup of Gaelic football is very similar to the NFL: 32 teams, 32 counties,
Ah.
and it's an amateur sport. So literally it's the best it's the team. Each county has a team, and it's literally just the best players in that county play for the team. So there are clubs around every like 5 minutes around the county. So I play club football for my team, and there are 3 players who I'd be very close to, or my friends who are on my team, who were good enough to play for County Armagh. And so they go on and play in front of, like, there's going to be like I can't really leak this, but there is going to be an NFL game announced for Croke Park. The Packers, I don't think, are going to be in it. I seen that report, unfortunately. But there is going to be an NFL game in Croke Park. I'm so excited for America to see Croke Park. It is this gigantic stadium in Dublin, 82,500 seats. So it would be like the 3rd biggest stadium in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's historic. It's as old as like Soldier Field is. It's one of the really, really coolest, like, it's like the Mecca of Ireland. And so the final is played there every year. Armagh won their 2nd ever All-Ireland final in July just past. So we're like the reigning Super Bowl champions. But it was weird because we weren't really contenders. We were like, it would be similar to like the Commanders having won it this year, where we kind of came out of the blue. We have a few good young players, and now we're probably going to be a solid contender for years to come. But like Armagh has always been renowned for its passion for Gaelic football and the fans that it has. There's hurling too, which, like, hurling and Gaelic football are kind of like sister sports. Armagh aren't very good at hurling, so we kind of forget about it. We hate to admit it's probably a more exciting sport, but it's for teams further down south in the country. Tipperary, Kilkenny, and Limerick, those kind of counties are very good at hurling. So we stick to the Gaelic football side of things, and I mean, that was the last time they won it was 2002, which I wasn't even born for. So that was it was such a cool experience. Armagh's fans are just crazy. We travel everywhere. I mean, to Americans, it doesn't sound like much because, you know, the furthest you can travel in Ireland is like a 4-hour drive. So to Americans, it's like, oh, it's nothing. But to us, a 4-hour drive is a big deal. That's a strong commitment to go to a sporting event. So yeah, that's kind of something. I mean, I've thrown out a few tweets here and there about the Armagh on my Twitter before, and you know, it gets some attention from Americans, but not much. But yeah, I'm excited for we'll call it a potential game in Croke Park next September that will maybe get to show our beautiful stadium off to a massive American audience.
Oh,
that's amazing! I'm so excited for you for that. So Gaelic football. I don't know anything about it. How similar is it to your kind of like classic USA football? How do we call it? Because there's Canadian football, so I can't say American football because that's all North America. But you know, as we know, NFL, how's it different? Is it a lot different? Is it similar?
So it's a lot different to American football. Funnily enough, American football is kind of recruiting some of our players as kickers because there's a lot of kicking in it. So Charlie Smith, who is the practice squad kicker for the Saints, he had like a kicking competition with their starter Blake Rupe, and will again next summer. So he's kind of our best prodigy. He's from literally like 10 minutes from my house. It's kind of weird. Like I'm close friends with him, but the sport in general, it's like a mix between soccer and rugby. So that's kind of the best description of it. It's like soccer, but you can use your hands. So round ball, you've got goals on either end. You've got the same amount of players in each team. It's like an open game. There's no start-stop like American football has, and yeah, you can use your hands. So it's like there's a little more aggressive. There's bigger hits in it. The players usually have to be a bit stronger, but yeah, we don't like soccer players. We call them soft. I love how America and the USA and Ireland are the only countries in the world that refer to what everyone else calls football as soccer, because you have your football, we have our football. So
that's funny too. When you said we started describing, it's like, oh yeah, okay. So like what most of the planet calls football is kind of the base of what the Gaelic football is like. Not like, you know, throwing a pigskin.
No.
I hate that phrase, pigskin. But you know,
yeah,
more like that. So that's gonna be like follow-up question. Like, so what position you play? Are there positions? How does that work?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, in like really basic terms, there are forwards and backs, or like attackers and defenders. So like it's kind of a bit like offense and defense in American football. So I mean, you're always on the field at once. You know, you don't come off the field. It's not that kind of thing. It's the same as soccer, essentially. I'm sure you've seen plenty of soccer games before. So yeah, it's the exact same kind of thing. I'm usually a defender because I'm not very good at shooting. Unfortunately, God did not bless me with like if I was like, it's kind of like the NFL version of like I'm a cornerback because I couldn't catch the ball at receiver, like that kind of thing. So like that's kind of the like for like comparison. So yeah, I'm doing the dirty work while my teammates can reap all the rewards. So yeah, our club is quite a proud club. Cullyhanna we're called. So we're like a medium. I mean, Cullyhanna has maybe 400 members, and that's the same goes for pretty much every club in Ireland. So you know, it's a small tight knit community. Everybody knows everybody, unless you're in like Dublin. Dublin's like the major city where, I mean, it's kind of like any American city where it's harder to, you know, have that close knit community feel. But like you always hear of like Tucker Craft's small town, like where he grew up, and they're all watching in the bar. That's literally what like every town in Ireland is. So this is kind of cool.
Right.
It's just a massive North Dakota where you're from.
Yeah, literally. That's spot on.
I love soccer, and that Gaelic football sounds really fun. I would love to see that. I have to find out, maybe find a game on YouTube or something that might be broadcast. Yeah, that sounds fun. I like soccer.
Hurling is literally cooler. Hurling is like sticks. It's kind of insane. It's the same principle, only the ball is like a tennis ball, and everyone has a bat, like a baseball bat. It's like if you like mixed baseball and soccer, that's kind of what hurling is.
Wow.
And also the players are allowed to like really lay into each other with big hits. Like there's like NFL level hits in it. It's like anyone watching it kind of gets blown away, and I do too. I've never personally really played hurling. I don't think I would have the guts to. So yeah, it's a really cool sport, and it's kind of getting a bigger global audience as years go on. So I'm hoping that, you know, the UK and like England and that kind of are getting into it slowly now. So I'm hoping maybe it gets across to the other border, because goodness knows your sport is making its way like a war through Europe. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's more ads for the Super Bowl here than ads for anything else. It's wild.
Right.
That's what Goodell wants. That's exactly what he wants for the sport. So he's doing it.
That's the one thing he's doing right. So I'm sorry, I'm going to be very negative today on Goodell, and thankfully for the entire audience, I lost all my superlatives because they would have been a real downer. So I won't even mention them. Okay, so how did you get introduced to the NFL then? Like, do you have like cable TV? Like, how did that work for you?
So like, I mean, my brother got me into it initially. He's like 6 years older than me. I kind of like got into it and then got way too much into it, if you know what I mean. But
yes,
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you do know what I mean. I always wish, because I always get asked the question of how did I like pick the Packers, and I wish I had a cool answer, but I don't. I just picked them. It's like I'd literally close your eyes and pick a team, and I'm really glad I did. I feel like if I like started out shooting like cheering for some other team, like I don't know, the Cardinals or something, I might have like lost interest quicker because the Packers are such a cool team.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm sorry, but but the
That's
like
okay.
I do think I would have lost interest maybe a
Mhm.
little sooner, and the Packers like. I mean, I wouldn't want to cheer for any other team, but yeah, I mean, getting into the sport, like it is broadcast here on, like our version of cable TV. It's
Okay.
right now, it's like extensively broadcast. Like we have like everything that America has. We actually kind of low key get more because we don't get the regional games. We just get all of them. So
Mm.
Oh yeah.
it's quite cool that way.
Yeah.
So it's and the timings, like I would actually argue I really enjoy watching the NFL on this time zone because you can be busy like midday on a Sunday, but after 6 p.m., which is your noon, or like Green Bay's Central Time noon,
Yeah.
you're not really going to be doing much after 6. So if there's a really good primetime game on, you can stay up, and that's like a 1 a.m. kickoff. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
if you really, really committed, or if it's the Packers or something, like they had like 4 primetime games this year, almost
Yeah.
killed me. But
Yeah.
like if you really want to stay up for that one game, you can, and then you're never missing red zone. I quite like the watching it from here.
Mhm.
It's nowhere near as bad as people like pretend it is. You know,
Mhm.
it's quite convenient here. 5 hours is not a massive gap. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I yeah, don't have a cool story about the Packers. Didn't a lot of people here support a team because they like were handed down
Mhm.
merchandise or something, and they were like, "Oh, well, that's the team of my hat, so I'm gonna
Mhm.
support them." I didn't even have that; I just supported them. So, yeah,
And then so you learned about them later, what makes them unique in the
of course.
obviously in terms of ownership and all of that. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was really wondering when I was thinking about having you on the show with Matt, I was thinking, how long has the NFL been super big in Europe? It's been about 20 years now, or is it more like
Yeah,
10?
I mean, the first international games were '07, and like looking back,
Okay.
they really like it almost felt like they jumped the gun. Like they were very early in '07. It wasn't a massive presence. From
Mm,
my experience, it has grown like exponentially over the last 6, 7 years to the
mhm,
point where like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they like are like household names
Oh
here,
mhm,
wow.
mhm.
whereas 10 years ago, Peyton Manning wasn't a household name, or
Mhm.
like Brady, obviously, because he's Brady, but like the top like 2 to 6 QBs 10 years ago, a vast majority of people wouldn't have known them, but now they're kind of like, oh yeah, Lamar Jackson, of course, he's the really, really amazing NFL QB. So like it's definitely grown in mainstream and in like the niche, obviously, just the fans here. The UK audience in general, like UK and Ireland, are very, very similar, like a very similar demographic of fans where they're quite intelligent. Like I don't mean that as in, oh, all Americans are stupid or anything, but like
Okay.
they're really fascinated. Like Americans are a lot more storyline driven or narrative driven, whereas UK fans love like schematics and they want to know
Mhm.
about tactics and everything. The Seahawks defensive coordinator is just like a diehard NFL fan from the UK who got cared so much he became a defensive coordinator of an NFL team. So that's kind of like the clientele that you're dealing with over here.
That's cool.
That's
That's
such a fascinating distinction. I like. Why would that be? I'm really fascinated by
I
that
don't know. I
idea.
think growing up with soccer coverage here,
Mhm.
it's nowhere near as storyline orientated. Like you could have
Mm.
this really like the NFL really sells like Brady returning to New England or something, whereas in
Mhm.
soccer that's like not a big deal for some reason. I don't. I love the NFL. I love how much but like they build up these storylines and how much
Mhm.
mhm,
they like, because I
mhm,
think it's so good. I love the narratives, and I mean any NFL fan here does like, obviously they like that part of it too, but
mhm.
I think it's just a thing where growing up you're kind of a little more like, I don't know, sport is maybe taken less sunshine and rainbows and a little more like strategy based or something.
Right.
I
War,
really
like
don't know.
war.
Yeah, literally like war. Yeah, it's a wonder
Yeah.
that your country is so much better at that than ours then.
Uh, well, maybe
It's just investment in dollars. That's all it is.
Yeah.
the story is partly why I'm feeling a little negative about the NFL. It's like, okay, we're into the storyline more than into making it a sport that is
Yeah.
actually accurate. Okay, so there was a just totally ADHD moment here, but there is a kicker. Wasn't there a kicker? No. There was an Irish player. There is an Irish player right now playing in the NFL. It's like
Yes, and he is
McCourty or
playing.
something.
There is McAtamney who plays for the. Now there is technically Dan Whelan. Like we
I
haven't
was going to
really
say,
mentioned him. Yeah,
yeah.
Right,
but
right.
I
That's
mean
what I was thinking of.
he's Irish. He grew up in Ireland. He moved to America when he was 13. He's still very proudly an Irish
Mhm.
guy. He's from County
Okay.
Clare, so he's like further down the country than me. But he has a full American accent. All his friends are American. He lived in
Mhm.
America since he was an adolescent. Like, so you can't
Mhm.
really. I wouldn't say like he's a complete product of Ireland. No, he learned how to punt in America. He learned the sport in America. But yeah, no, it's cool to see how much how much pride he has in his heritage, because there's a lot of people who do move country and then forget about it. Joel Embiid
Mhm.
plays basketball for America, like
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's nice to see how much he reps his past. Yeah, the Jude McAtamney, who is like he's from like an hour north of me. He kicked for the Giants in a couple of games this year when their starting kicker was hurt. There are a few others who usually, I think it's going to become like a yearly thing where they go over and kick at the combine. And the NFL has this international player pathway program where they
Mhm.
kind of assign these players to teams, which is a really cool way of getting them on the team without the team incurring any expense. So
Mhm.
that's what happened with Charlie Smith with the Saints. And listen, he's got a really good shot to play some games in the NFL going forward. So that's so cool. I think to
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
flexibility.
It seems like most of the people who come to America from Ireland and from Australia in the international players pathway are kickers. Is that right?
Yeah, that is. It's just basically the sports that we grew up. Ireland, if you
Mhm.
aren't, America isn't a big rugby country, obviously, but
Right.
Ireland is the world number one in rugby, or has been for like 5 years.
Mhm.
It's weird because I don't like 95% of Ireland doesn't really care about rugby, but the 5% that does is Dublin, and Dublin is rugby crazy. And
Mhm.
it's 5% of the country, but like 50% of the population. Obviously, Dublin's a
Right.
mega
Yeah.
global city at this point, but and there's so much investment into rugby. There's really global sponsors and stuff. Like you've got so much, like as you said, dollars going into stuff that's just
Mhm.
the euro being pumped into rugby at from all levels. So Ireland has breeded some incredibly like NFL caliber athletes, but the rugby system does eat them up a little. So
Mm.
it's similar in Australia. You've got a lot of NFL caliber athletes in Australia who are playing Australian rules football. Um, or like Aussie rules as it's generally known. That's where Jordan Mailata come from. You've got these professional sports that are taking these players. The only ones going to America are the Gaelic footballers, which is an amateur unpaid sport, because
Mhm.
they're going to go make some money. So who can blame them doing that? So that's
Right.
kind of where that comes from. That's why you're only getting kickers. You're not getting actual, big
Got it.
guys.
Yeah. That makes sense. I was
That
wondering
makes
the
no
same
sense. Yeah.
thing. Good question.
Good explanation.
So we'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about your work that you do 24 Sports and Packers Report for those who might not be following you. But we want them to know what they're missing out on. But also, what do you enjoy most about your work? How did you get started doing that kind of work all the way over there in Ireland for the
Yeah.
NFL?
So like I started in 2020 during COVID because I didn't have to go to
Mm.
school because the schools were closed. So I basically had a ton of free time, and I loved American football, and I loved the Packers, and the Packers were getting like, you knew going into the 2020 season that they were going to be really, really good. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'd love to do something more than just cheer for the team. So I thought, you know what, I'll start writing articles. What I did was I reached out to people on Twitter. I asked for some advice. Eventually, one guy, Ryan Schlipp, also known as Packernet, Pack Daddy,
Yes,
he
Mhm.
I
was the
love
first
Ryan.
guy that ever gave me like I got
Oh,
writing a newsletter for him. I've always been so grateful for him. I've always said, if there's anything you ever need from me, I'll always be happy to do it. So from there, like one thing led to another. I always sort of emphasized Twitter. I thought like just social media in general was a good way. if you're maybe writing somewhere, or doing any kind of media creation somewhere where you might not be getting a ton of views, if you get it onto Twitter, the algorithms were always kind of helpful in my favor. They used to be. They've been pretty bad ever since it became X. But luckily I got in there at a time when the algorithms in Twitter actually rewarded good, good social media posts, intriguing kind of formats and stuff. So it was always just trying to think outside the box. Do articles that other people maybe hadn't thought of. I'm still I get stuck in ruts from time to time still. I don't write nearly as much as I probably should at the minute. I mean, it's been pretty sparse, unfortunately, the past couple of weeks. But I mean, sometimes you're trying to think of new things. Sometimes, other life aspects get in the way. College gets in the way, stuff like that. So it's there's a lot to go on. But yeah, I've been so fortunate. Ross Uglum picked me up to go write for Packer Report, which is on the 24/7 Sports site. So that led me to get to my first game as a credentialed member of the media. Funny story, that was the first NFL game that I had ever been to, and I had locker room access to the Packers locker room. So you can imagine if I was just at a Packers game, full stop, having supported them my whole life, I would have been stunned. But to have it all come at once, I kind of would have get a game. First of all, I would have liked to get a NFL game. Didn't have to be a Packers game. I should have got to a game. Then I should have got to a Packers game as a fan. Then maybe media stuff, and then locker room. No, I got it all thrown at me that one fateful day in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London for Packers Giants. The Packers are 0-4. No, 0-3. Yeah, 0-3 when I've been to watch them. Saquon has beaten them. Saquon has beaten them all 3 times.
Oh, wow.
The Giants in London, the Giants in New York, and then the Eagles in week 1 this year. So I'm going to going to New Orleans next week to watch Saquon win again, maybe.
Yes.
I mean, maybe he only turns it on when I show up. So it's been maybe I'm a bad luck curse. Maybe you're thankful that I might have had to cancel those flights to New Orleans if the Packers hadn't made it this far. So it's kind of a funny way of presenting itself. But yeah, that's the only 3 Packers games I've been to. Haven't been to Lambeau yet, so that's
crazy.
That's wild.
To be thrown into that level of immersion immediately it's mind-boggling. I can't even comprehend what that'd be like. And I think it's not that you're a bad luck being charm, whatever, for the Packers. You're just a good luck charm for Saquon. So I'm actually glad you're going. Is though I don't like either of these teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl, everyone wants to see the Chiefs lose. Even if it's at the Eagles' hand. So let's go. Let's do this. Bring Saquon the juice.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon has always been I loved him coming out of Penn State. That was one of my favorite ever prospects, and he was wasted. He was wasted in New York for all but those 2 games against the Packers, where he went off on both occasions. So yeah, it was weird being at those Packers games because you're so excited to do the media stuff after the game and ask questions and all, but the morale is so low after those losses that it kind of is a bit of a it ends a bit sucky. But hopefully I get to a game where they win and we can all be happy.
Yes, at Lambeau.
At Lambeau.
The grand, yes, that would be wonderful for you. I forgot you were at Brazil. I do remember that when you just mentioned it. Yeah, well, you have my permission, either of you, to text me. I'm boycotting the Super Bowl this year with many millions of other people, evidently. But you have my permission to text me at halftime, or maybe in the 3rd or 4th quarter if the Eagles are winning. I might listen a little or watch. Maybe they'll, but I have a feeling it'll just end up in disaster anyway. But.
Don, you say you're not going to watch it. It's inevitable. You'll be turning it on at some point. It's going to happen. Yeah, no, I think you say that now. You and many football fans worldwide are saying, I'm not going to watch these teams. You're going to watch it.
Well, last year I was kind of should I even bother? And then I begrudgingly kind of watched it because I am a big football fan, and I'll watch every game I possibly can. But no, this year I really don't think I'm gonna watch it. I'm pretty annoyed, and it's just I think because there's so many other people noticing what I'm seeing, and it's okay, this is a thing. I don't like it. there's only one thing you can do, and that's to not watch it.
To not watch it, yeah.
Right.
And to be clear,
so,
you're talking about the refs, right? Is what you're saying,
I'm
Don?
not- yeah, and I'm not saying I don't know about fixed and all that, but I'm just saying that there's just too much. There's too many bad calls. There's too many close calls where another team could have won. And I just don't like it. It needs to change. Yeah, it needs to change. So, yeah, I'm not going to go like texting about it and tweet,
like we get a text.
Skeeting about it. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Blue skying about it. But it's like, yeah, that's how I am. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Once I get turned off of something, I'm just going to start looking forward to, the draft and the preseason and all that.
Never
as soon as this is over. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but you can let me know if something's happening that I might. And I mean, it's not that I'm thrilled about the Eagles. I'm not a poor sport. Like, I want to see good football. I really do. Yeah. And they have like we were talking about Barkley. He's great, so I love that. I love seeing good football. It just kind of turns my stomach when I see those bad calls in the game turning on it. It's just not right. It's just, it's not right.
I get you.
So I get you. Anyway. Okay. So, all right. So, what do you enjoy the most about doing your work? Aside from not, having moments of not knowing what to write about.
I mean, I love just like being able to engage, especially the game day stuff, like being able to just, throw whatever random stupid thought or meme or something I had in my head onto Twitter and, receive, let people, dial in, or sometimes people are coming after you, sometimes people are, I've kind of thicker skin than some others. I don't really care if people are like super toxic. I mean, I personally wouldn't be, but it doesn't really bother me too much. Irish people take the piss out of you literally nonstop, so it's kind of like our thing. So no, it's never something that's really bothered me. But yeah, the things I enjoy most are literally that. It's just it's being able to interact with a new community, especially one that's literally thousands of miles away across the world. It's always the idea, and like I mentioned, never being to Lambeau. It's like me and my brother who's actually a Broncos fan, he's not a Packers fan. Again, you pick a random team and you stick with them. But we've always had the goal of going over to Green Bay, and the first time we go, there'll be no media stuff. We just want to do it as fans. And so it's kind of cool, the idea that, if I was to say, hey, I'm going out to Green Bay for this game, I'm going to get people saying, oh, you can stay with us. Oh, if you need a ride here, you can get it with us. You can come tailgate with us. You can come do this and do that, and it's so cool. Like, these are people who I've never actually met in person. I've never met you guys in person, but I can talk away to you here like it's nothing, So I just find that part of it so cool. It's just a whole different world compared to what I have boxed in my little island here in Ireland.
Well, that community is such an important part of the experience for me personally. I think for Dawn, I think for many, many people out there, because I actually saw like a Facebook memory from 5 years ago, a couple of weeks ago, that was like, so this was really fun this season, like getting to know Packers Twitter better. And I was thinking about that. I was like, it's only 5 years since I've been like so like enmeshed in the community. That's crazy to me, because it seems like it's been so much longer, because it's such a big thing. I mean, Dawn and I started the podcast, I think partially because we love the community so much, want to like highlight people, of course. So that's a perfect answer. I mean, yeah, it's the community. Absolutely. And like, if you ever end up in Cincinnati, man, we're hanging out. I got a room right there for you to stay in, like, absolutely.
Like, that's so cool. Yeah. I mean, it's, as you say, it's all about the people and the community. That's just the coolest part of it. And we can argue and we can moan about what the Packers did wrong or what the Packers did right or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's just a whole lot of fun every single year. It's something to look forward to every year. Green Bay's got the draft this year. That's going to be so cool. I was offered to go to the draft. Okay. And I turned it down, because I'm so adamant that my first time in Green Bay is going to be going to a Packers game at Lambeau. And as much as it kind of is like a little like, oh, but I could still go and have so much fun and meet so many people who I know. I was like, no, I'm staying true to what I've always said. The first time I go to Green Bay, I am going to drink so much beer. I am going to sit in the stands and I am going to yell and stand and shout all game long. And I won't, you'll not hear from me on Twitter. You'll not hear from me on any social media, on Blue Sky, on anything. I'm just going to be a fan in my own world for that day. And I can't wait for it. Whenever it may be. Maybe next year. Who knows?
I hope so. I hope so. We need to know what
Mhm.
game that is in case we can get there.
Yeah, seriously.
I need to make my yearly pilgrimage to Wisconsin myself. So, well, so we were talking, and our final question is always the same one for every guest, and we're talking about the beloved NFL and Packers online community. What is so? And I think you mentioned it. The one thing that you love the most, and one thing you would change if you had the power to change it.
You know, a lot of people like to say, they'd like to like make it a little more of a positive environment.
Mhm.
I kind of wish that the one change I would make is I wish that everybody went to Blue Sky and not just half the people.
Right.
And I know that you guys are advocates for this, and
Mhm.
I am by no means a saint myself. I have done very little to support the move to Blue Sky. I keep forgetting about it. I'm not forgetting about it. I keep being like, ah, shit, like I've got like 15K followers on Twitter. I'm gonna go go over there. It's a pure like selfish, childish thing, but
Mhm.
it just annoys me because it's like it's almost like unfeasible for the whole community to go because
Mhm.
there's just so much on Twitter, and if
Mhm.
there's other teams on Twitter, like the NFL as a whole, is the Packers are not an exclusive entity. Like you can have really good friends of fans who are of other teams and other communities, and they're all going to be on Twitter. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the one thing that bugs me. I wish that Twitter just became a more hospitable place. I think that's a more
Mhm.
simple solution
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
changing to a new platform, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon. So it's I know my request for change is something that isn't probably feasible. So I'm sorry.
Well, it's like,
That's okay.
given no restrictions, given a magic wand, what would it be? I think that's great. I mean, we always remark on
Mhm.
like the fact that people always have a different answer. There's always a unique answer to that
Yeah.
question, which it fascinates me. And that's a good one because
Mhm.
I understand, like I don't have like a massive following on Twitter. So for me to just like flip over to Blue Sky, it's like I just rather be there. It's a better place because it is, as you've seen. But yeah, trying to get everyone to move over, and like lose all the followers and that audience, that's rough. I mean, there's one of my superlatives, not to get ahead of myself here, is going to be about a tweet that, so spoiler alert, or actually I should say, teaser. We're teasing it a bit here, right? It's about a tweet that you can see how many numbers it did on Twitter versus how many people liked it on Blue Sky, because this person, posted to both places, and the number is not even comparable. It's a crazy difference between the two, and that's just because that's what it is right now. Everybody's still over on Twitter. I try not to
Mhm.
be there very much, but even then, one of the functionalities of Twitter is that it still has like the ability to do alerts for specific accounts. So I
Mhm.
get messages to my home screen, on my phone, like when Adam Rappaport or Ian Rappaport, sorry, or Adam Schefter, they're two different people,
Yeah, that's
or Bill Huber or a couple other people, Tom Grossi, every time they post something on Twitter, I should be saying X, I guess, but and we don't have that on Blue Sky yet, so I feel like I still have to have like a foot in that world as much as I don't
Mhm.
want to, and also group chats still exist there and haven't become a
Right.
thing on Blue Sky yet, so
Right.
um so I hear you. I wish people would all move. I wish we had a little more functionality on Blue Sky.
Mhm.
But it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
It is. I was thinking this week, it's like I think I need to just close it because I don't go on Twitter at all. But once in a, I shouldn't say at all because there's a little exception. It's like there's some accounts that you can't find anywhere
Mhm.
on Blue
Mhm.
Skies yet. So I had to look up something. I can't remember what it was last week. So I'm like, I need to just delete this whole profile I have here because I don't want to be here. I mean, I don't want to be in two places, even from a practical standpoint. It's
Mhm.
like you say, you forget about one. There's not enough time to do both, and because then you're like twice as much on social media instead of half.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I'm enjoying Blue Sky a lot. I just like the way you can control things better and the lack of advertising, and yeah, I
Yes.
just love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Les, time for us to do our switcheroo over to our superlatives. I know you have a couple, Dara, and Matt has a few. So
Mhm.
let's get to them. Are you guys ready?
Oh, do it. Do it.
It's time for this week's superlatives.
I love it.
I love
All
that so
right.
much.
I might get over it eventually, Dawn. I might eventually not find that to be the most amusing thing. Maybe.
I was going to actually ask Matt to write some music because Matt wrote the music for our podcast, right? So I was going to ask him to write a swooshy kind of transition piece, but I wasn't sure if he would know what I was talking about. So I put this together, and the reaction from him has just been so funny. So one day we might switch it so it's a little bit more on brand with our jazzy kind of bebop.
Yeah, come on, we're in New Orleans next week. Come on, we gotta.
There we go.
Funk
Yeah.
up
I'll get on
the.
that.
Yeah.
So putting another thing on Matt's plate because he doesn't have enough to do. Right? Well, let's hear what you have. I'm excited to hear what you have, Dara.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna start off with article, the superlative. I have titled it as best article. So it's gonna come from Jonathan Barnett of Acme Packing Company, which is the SB Nation site, which are always one of the premier locations for Packers. Packers everything really. The article is titled "The History of the NFL's Three-Peats." And it is kind of essentially it's an article that is laying into the NFL for this propaganda that the Chiefs are going to be the first ever team to three-peat if they win on Sunday. And I'm not overly like a petty person about this, but it does still annoy me that the Packers get completely disregarded when it comes to this conversation. I would get it maybe if they've three-peated during the NFL Championship era. But two of the three-peats were Super Bowls. Like two of those three titles were Super Bowls, and the one before that was one of the most hotly contested NFL championships ever. So I mean, it's like this kind of ridiculous. Like the article is in itself is really well written, and aside from the whole like the Packers deserve recognition, it's pointing out so many good points about how in other sports we don't have this arbitrary cutoff of when titles do and do not matter. So, you talk about all the great Boston Celtics teams who were the pre-Super Bowl era. I think he mentioned that there's only one three-peat in Major League Baseball history in the Super Bowl era, which again, it's just a random time to cut it off. I get that there were less teams, but I mean, the AFL wasn't treated as a serious entity for the first 5 years of the Super Bowl anyway. So I don't get why Super Bowls count, but the previous championships of the very league itself don't count. So it's a really well written article. It goes into dives into the history of the Canton Bulldogs. It obviously dives into the Packers and all that. So yeah, I mean it's definitely worth a read for anyone who's interested. It's very topical for this week as we're all going to be shoveled three-peat info down our throats, except for Dawn, who isn't going to be watching.
Except for Dawn, who's
yeah.
But this leads into the whole storytelling that the NFL does.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why it irks me. It's like I rather the more dry approach and the analytical approach that you Irishmen have to your fandom, because it leads to all this fantasy and making up stories that don't exist. So I love that.
Well, you're going to love that, and you're going to hate my next superlative because my two superlatives completely juxtapose each other, unfortunately. This one is called, I mean, it's a stupid title for it, but it's called Best Postseason Philosophy. And it comes from, I actually don't know who invented this idea, but Justice Mosqueda, who's one of the very best Packers minds, has always kind of stood by this, and he's been kind of like the new standard bearer for this. It's called No New Rings, and it is exactly what you think it is. The philosophy of no new rings. Whenever the Packers go out of the playoffs, you are rooting for first of all, no franchises to get new rings. Now, that doesn't apply to the Super Bowl because the Eagles and Chiefs have both won in this century. But you're also rooting for no like quarterbacks teams, as you would maybe refer to like an era of a team to get a ring. And I don't hate the Eagles, but I don't necessarily love them either. And I don't want Jalen Hurts to be on par with Aaron Rodgers when it comes to Super Bowl rings. I don't want Jalen Hurts to have one more Super Bowl ring than Jordan Love. And I'm fine with Patrick Mahomes like racking up all these rings. And now you can make the argument, oh, but Daire, you don't want the Chiefs to go ahead of the Packers in the overall rings race. Listen, the Chiefs, if they don't win this Super Bowl, they're still in 10 years' time going to be miles ahead of the Packers, unfortunately, when it comes to these like greatest franchises of all time thing. They're just so good with Mahomes. So I'm happy for Mahomes the same way I was happy for Brady to just win ring after ring after ring, because frankly, I don't care if, yeah, sure, there can be 3 guys better than Aaron Rodgers ever, but there sure as hell can't be 20. So that's kind of the way I like to see it. And I love the philosophy of, it's so petty, it's so stupid, but yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of what makes me entertain the Chiefs a little, in that I don't really mind seeing the Chiefs win. I've always kind of liked Mahomes. This year, I've really, as you say, the referee stuff's been infuriating, and the flopping really needs to stop.
The
And
flopping,
I think,
yes.
to his credit, I think it will stop. And I seen someone heed the call, the podcast, who I know they're not Packers oriented, but NFL oriented, with Dan Hansis and Mark Sessler. They pointed out that they think Mahomes is above a level where he wants his legacy to be remembered for the good things, and I don't think Mahomes wants to be remembered as a flopper, as a cheater. I think Mahomes holds himself to a higher regard than that. So I kind of feel like maybe he's seen the backlash of doing that in the playoffs, and he might say, okay, maybe I don't want to be remembered for this. And so that's what I hope, because the first couple of years of Mahomes, it was impossible to not love him. He was the most must-see QB the NFL had ever had. So I mean, obviously he's toned it down in recent years, which is a shame. But I mean, I'll always hold that little bit of my heart for Mahomes. So I'm not going to be rooting against the Chiefs. I'm not really going to be rooting for anybody.
Right.
But it's a way in which I can talk myself into either team winning, either stop this three-peat nonsense or no new rings. So those are my two superlatives. And the way that I've talked myself into looking forward to the Super Bowl that I am, contractually obligated to attend.
I forgot about Justice's no new rings take. I remember hearing about it last year, but I like the idea. It's very appealing, it actually in a way kind of helps the Packers in a very hatery flavored way.
Oh, it's so petty. So petty. It's
super petty.
Justice.
But I love it. I love it.
Well, and that's, I think, why I'm not really bitter. I'm just gut punched, because I want the integrity of the sport to be upheld. I want the character of players to be high. I don't want this goofing around and game playing, refs or no refs, because I think the player, as you mentioned, Mahomes, is largely responsible for a lot of it for a few years now.
Absolutely.
And that is what leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like it that so many people are just saying, oh, you just don't want the Chiefs to win. That's not true. I want to see really good football, and I want to be the standard to be upheld. And maybe I'm a purist, but that's just how I feel about it. It's just that's just distasteful to see that kind of cheatery. And I would hope he doesn't. I'm sure they have to see it. It's undeniable. The number, I mean, I wasn't paying attention much to the backlash. And so I was heartened to see that, oh, I'm not the only one who feels this way. A lot of people are noticing that. So, so for me, I'm not really a hater, unless it's somebody who's just, bringing the game down because of bad character or off the field, behavior or that kind of thing. That's, shouldn't be, there's supposed to be certain character in the NFL. I forgot what the policy was, but they can get in trouble for doing things that are not good. So so it's more that. So that's why I say, and that's why Matt says about me, oh, you're going to want to watch things, because I really love watching football. I really do. So it hurts me to not be able to watch the last game of the season for that reason. I hope you're right about him. I'm not convinced he cares from what I've seen so far.
That's fair.
But I hope I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right about that. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, for sure. He doesn't seem to care right now. But when you're in a bubble too, you're in a bubble. We're all in our own bubbles, right? So I was thinking about him. It's like in Kelsey and some of the remarks he makes that are just so off-putting. It's like they're just in their little bubble. They're not really getting it. Maybe somebody will break through and maybe they'll see like, yeah, this is not going down very well with like at least half of the people in the country, like 100 million people. So, Maddie, what do you have for us?
Yeah. So I have three superlatives. The first one I'm going to mention here is actually very similar to the first one that you had, Dara, because you're talking about Jonathan Barnett's article for APC about the history that we're ignoring with trying to like make these stories, these narratives, right? Because my first one I talk about is best rant. So the oft mentioned John Meerdink with his amazing podcast Blue 58, he had this really wonderful rant about that exact same thing, and he started it with saying, "Bill Belichick, you should know better," because Bill Belichick had like said this week, maybe we should rename it the Tom Brady instead of the Lombardi Trophy, which of course is just ridiculous. Like this is a historic thing. It's named this for a lot of good reasons. So he went into like the history of the name, about why this is ridiculous, and the whole three-peat thing, dug into that as well. So like as you're talking about the article that you that you read here on APC, it's like, oh yeah, and also this is in the conversation right now because people are talking about their podcasts as well. And of course, John Meerdink, everything he does is amazing. It's always so well articulated with such a beautiful voice, every single time. So that was a really good one, of course.
Love that.
My second one, best tweet. This one works a little bluer than we usually do on this show, I will say, but this is from our queen, Erin Alice. It was a very simple tweet. It just said, it was like a quote tweet of like the matchup for the Super Bowl this year. So it says like, our matchup is set. It's the Chiefs versus the Eagles. And her thing simply said, because it's Super Bowl 59 or Roman numerals LIX, which looks like licks, and so her tweet finally said, "This matchup can licks my balls," and that was it. And it's just like, drop the mic. There it is. And that was the one I mentioned that got like a bajillion, reposts and likes on X, and like 100 some likes on Blue Sky. So we just need to shift that.
Right. I did see it on Blue Sky. I was one of the likes. Yes.
I saw it on all kinds of places outside of even like either of those platforms because people picked it up, started memeing it and stuff like that because it's such a solid joke right there. So, Erin, nicely done. It was a banger. And my third one for this week is best explanation. So, we haven't talked a lot about Roger Sherman on this show, unfortunately, because he's a very funny writer, poster, tweeter, what have you. Really funny, really smart. And so he had an article on his Substack this week called "When Can Referees Award a Touchdown as a Penalty? A Palpably Unfair Analysis." Because he's talking about in the Commanders-Eagles game last week about how at the goal line, when the Eagles are going to have like an automatic touchdown, it's a tush push, they're going to get in. There's that as near the end of the game, the Commanders kept like committing penalties. If you guys saw this, to like keeping like half the distance to the goal, and and it means to hopefully one of those actually works. They time it right, jumping over over the center to try to stop the tush push because they kept just jumping too early. Until the ref said, "You know what? If you keep doing this, they're just going to get the touchdown." It's basically like the paraphrasing, because there's this obscure rule about like if a team commits a palpably unfair act,
right,
the referees can award a touchdown to the other team. Which who's ever heard of that?
Never. I thought it was funny. I thought he wasn't serious, but they did say, it's
an actual rule. Yeah, because when it came up, it was like, what? You can't.
The first time he did it, I was just like, that is hilarious. Do it again. And then he did it again.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the rule kind of makes sense because there's no, there is no penalty to jumping off sides in that instance. But yeah, it is funny to test the limits. Like if you did that on Madden, it would just, it would be an eternal loop of first and goal from the 1 yard line. So it was cool to see Frankie Louvu, test the limits of what is possible.
Yeah, that was a hilarious part of the game for sure. Even a part of the season. So then Roger Sherman wrote a really great, article on a Substack about it, talking about the history of this, how it's happened in college football more than once, how it was used in an episode of Friday Night Lights, how the movie Air Bud plays into it.
Wow.
So it was a very entertaining article, and I definitely walked away having learned something about some obscure rules that I had no idea existed. It was really good.
I love that, Maddie. That is fantastic. That was the most joyous part of the championship games, I thought.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love that. I love that. Well, those are fantastic. I'm going to, as mentioned earlier, forego my superlatives, mostly because I lost them. But
Whoops.
we all have a timeline too. So before we let you go, Daire, any final thoughts before we do our sign off?
No, we've hit on everything. I mean, it's been a real treat to be on this with you guys. I mean, again, this is just one of the coolest podcasts. I love the idea of a podcast that focuses on other podcasts, especially in like our fun little niche community. I kind of wish that in fact, one thing I should have put in as my change is that I kind of wish that Packers Twitter was a little more open. I call it Packers Twitter. I am so sorry. Packers community.
We all do still,
yeah.
We know what you mean.
I kind of wish it was a little more, people not collaborated, but like shared their work and promoted others' work a little more. Like I've always been, I've always been a fan of, there shouldn't be any competitors. There shouldn't be, I can't work with these guys because, I don't want to promote their side over mine or some stupid stuff like that. So I've always, tried to promote good work no matter where it is, and I really, really appreciate that this podcast is literally dedicated to that. So that's so cool to me. I think that's like it's a really unique idea, and it's a really fun idea, and I always have like a beaming smile on my face anytime I hear my name on this podcast. It's literally one of the coolest honors I can get, and I've it's you might think that sounds ridiculous, but it really is. It's so fun, and I always clip up the podcast and I send it to my older sister. She lives in Dubai, and so I love sending it over to her, and she's like, "Oh my god, this sounds so sweet," and everything. So yeah, it's your podcast has gone completely worldwide.
That's fantastic. I love that. Well, thank you, Maddie. Any final thoughts? By the way, before mine is shout out to our True North Packers fan in the comments. Sorry, we haven't put your comments
Dawn,
up.
you can't say that on the podcast. You can't.
What?
Oh, do you know what that phrase means, Dawn?
I didn't say it. Well, I have no idea.
Well, I just said it, so
I don't know. Oh, okay.
True North is using some European slang right there. That's what he's talking about.
I did not know. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just be
I'll tell you
shouting
about
out
it
that
now.
he was in
No
the
comment
comments.
later, okay?
Okay.
No comment.
All
No
right.
comment. True North
I was
trying to
just
get us
saying
in
hi
trouble
to
here.
True North. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, no, hi to True North. Thanks I would always appreciate you being here.
Okay.
Dara, thanks for all the kind words. That really, it means a lot. It really means a lot. So appreciate that. Glad you like the show and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. Before we forget, where can people find your stuff? We should say that before we get to the signing off here.
Yeah, well, you can find me. I'm gonna try and get on Blue Sky a little more over the off season now. But for as of right now, you can find me. I'll have some Super Bowl interviews, like player interviews this week. I'm a big fan of Theo Ash. I'm completely different. Yeah, but he had a really cool thing he did this exact Super Bowl matchup 2 years ago, where he kind of just asked players like deeper kind of schematic questions, which I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's like, he would ask a player, in this coverage, what exactly is it you're doing? And the players kind of get a little more engaged, because a lot of guys and the Super Bowl are just kind of on autopilot, like, oh, it's a great honor to play in the Super Bowl, whatever. So I'm kind of hoping that I can get a few like interesting clips from players over the week. So look out for that on my Twitter. You can follow, if you want some Super Bowl content over the next week, follow Pro Football Ireland on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky. They're on everything. So yeah, and obviously, of course, the work on 24/7 Sports, and that's me. That's it.
That's you.
And then just on Twitter and Blue Sky, is it just Carragher straight up? Is there you have a dot in there, like just
up? No, it's straight up. And if you can figure out how to spell my name, fair play.
Yeah, it's D like David, AIRE. CARRAGHER, right? Do I have that right?
Yep.
Okay.
That is spot on.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
All
Nailed
right.
it.
Yep. Okay, Maddie, let's bring her home.
Yeah, totally. So, and just one more time, Dara, man, this has been awesome. I've been looking forward to this. Thank you for being here with us. Really appreciate it. So,
Indeed.
friends, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you'll help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family, especially those who are in Dubai.
Especially, hi, sis. Yes, Maddie, that's right. We love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Originators of the three-peat times 2. Just saying.
That's right. That's right.
It's a fact. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod. And we look forward to seeing you next week on.
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.